You know, whenever I get a new phone, I always wonder what makes it unique or what exciting story can be found. If we're honest, phones are kind of boring right now. And that's not because they're bad. It's because most phones are pretty great. But you know, when you add in those incremental upgrades every year, it really doesn't seem like a significant, exciting change, at least for people like us. So when I got the Nothing Phone 2, I thought, yeah, this is a good, solid phone, like nearly every other phone coming out nowadays. Sure, the transparent design is unique and legitimately cool, along with those glyph lights, but outside of that, or if you put a case on it, it can just seem like another solid phone, at least at first. But after using this for a few months, I discovered the unique story about this phone, and it's also a story about all these phones, the Google Pixels, and this one right here, the iPhone. You see, I don't think the Google Pixel is where we should look to for the iPhone of Androids anymore. The Nothing Phone 2 gives me hope that Nothing could eventually become a place where we look to for that. So let me explain, and maybe you'll see it as well after talking about channel sponsor Dbrand. If you want that awesome transparent-like design on your phone that is component accurate, a leather skin or case, or even a transparent case that won't yellow on you, then check out Dbrand. Their full grain leather skins are my favorite out there, and I'm especially excited about their new Ghost series transparent cases that they say that you'll die before the yellow. Dbrand. Anyways, check them out by clicking the link down below in the description, and thanks to Dbrand for sponsoring this portion of the video. Ever since the Google Pixel came out, many Android fans looked to Google as the one who would make the iPhone of Androids, a refined, expertly crafted phone with amazing, tightly integrated software and hardware that you only get because you're the creator of both the software and the hardware. We have wanted to have something that has a long-term vision, you know, the things that you often see in an iPhone. The Dynamic Island, for instance, is a really clever example of taking a hardware limitation and making it work with software to create something exceptionally intentional and well executed. It would make sense to think Google could do the same since it's the owner and developer of Android. So when you look at today and you combine the software Google makes and the hardware that they make, you easily have the iPhone of Androids, right? Well, you'd think so, but for some reason, Google manages to have at least one major flaw, issue, or bizarre choice with their phones, if not many. Every year, these issues plague the news cycle. A camera module disconnecting, washed out splotchy displays, a bathtub notch and scratchy back with not enough RAM, so apps close all the time, lousy battery life and gestures that kinda work, a display that would easily crack, overheating issues, telephoto cameras that can't seem to reliably focus, and a foldable that doesn't seem to want to stay open flat, and on it goes. And now we have the Google Pixel 8 Pro that comes with a thermometer. Yeah, I don't know. Add in how features or hardware will be added to one generation and removed from the next. It can really seem like Google is throwing things against the wall and making things up as they go rather than having a very intentional, strategic, long-term plan. Compare that to how Apple consistently adds something to their Pro models. They train their users and developers on how to use it and then eventually rolls it out for the rest of the lineup, like the Dynamic Island, or that new double tap gesture on the Apple Watch that's training people to use the Apple Vision Pro. If we're really honest, do we expect a thermometer to be in the Google Pixel 9 Pro? Gosh, it honestly makes me think of how Disney bought Star Wars, had no plan for it, and made it up all along the way.
And it confirms the worst. Somehow Palpatine returned.
That just worked out amazingly, right? Even worse, the software experience seems to be getting consistently worse. And sure, there are always some of you who have no issues, and great, good, I'm happy for you. But some of us have run into some weird issues. After many years, the bottom navigation bar still freezes on some of us. Some apps crash and shut down after every Android update. And there's a strange trend of software getting slower, less stable, and buggier in a shorter period of time than other Android phones. It's kind of bizarre to see these software issues from the people making it. They cannot even seem to get their own company to consistently follow their own material design guidelines. That's, how everything looks. Nor can they follow their own rules that they have for other hardware manufacturers for their own phones. This has led to developers like Moment ceasing production on their own Android apps because it was honestly too labor intensive to constantly chase every inconsistency between Android phones, especially in Google's Pixel phones. It honestly kind of seems like an internal cultural issue at Google that doesn't prioritize or value these things as much as Apple. When you realize these cultural differences between Google and Apple, it starts making a ton of sense on why the Google Pixel will never be the iPhone of Androids. To be frank, I've fallen into the whole I'll believe it when I'll see it phase. That's where the Nothing Phone 2 comes in. While it may not comprehensively check off what an iPhone of Android is, it does check off many of the boxes you'd hope for in an iPhone of Android. Even more importantly, it's showing a trajectory of the future of Nothing phones, which honestly gives me a lot of hope that they could fill the role that Google has really failed in. First, Nothing has managed to make their own lightly customized version of Android more stable, fast, and optimized than even Google. The people who actually make the operating system. I haven't experienced, nor have I heard of any notable bugs. The design language is consistent throughout, with deep attention given to the text, icon, color schemes, accents, widgets, menus, and more. Even the sounds are confidently and consistently what you would expect from Nothing. And with all that, you can tell that Nothing has a unified vision and a deep care for the details. Meanwhile, Google's own widgets have different corner radii. This design goes beyond the software into the hardware. They're among the few Android phone brands that prioritize even bezels, giving a clean look like an iPhone. Add in wonderful corner radiuses that make it look modern, and of course the transparent design on the back that lets you see all of these fun details. Making transparent tech is expensive and challenging, but you can look at all of their devices and you don't see any glue or adhesives compared to others who have tried. This requires a significantly higher level of competency and care in the execution of the phone, starting from the design all the way to the manufacturing. Remember how I mentioned how Apple manages to execute on having a deep software and hardware integration? Well, the Nothing Phone 2 shows they can do that already. Surprisingly, the Glyph interface has a unique and iconic way of communicating with you for things like charging, timers, Ubers, and more. You can kind of think of this as a more stylized but highly simplified version of the iPhone's dynamic island. Add in the fun little accents of a blinking red LED when filming a video and a corresponding light pattern that matches your ringtone. It's pretty fun and tightly integrated. You really see those kind of examples of that intentionality there. Plus, if you have a bunch of friends with the Nothing Phone 2 and they have the flip the glyph feature turned on, you can get some really fun and happy accents.
Oh, dude, so I got this new phone. It's called the Nothing Phone 2. Have you guys heard of it?
Yeah. I got a new phone too.
Oh.
Have you heard of this one? It's a Nothing Phone 2.
Oh my God, we all have a Nothing Phone 2. That's really interesting. Oh my God. Oh no, he fucked it up. Now we'll never know.
And yes, I admit, these are pretty basic examples in the Nothing Phone, but they do show a company with a culture that intentionally focuses intensely on the user experience, what we, you, me experience, all the way down to the little details. And that's actually a huge deal if you have the long term in mind. There's a wise word out there that talks about how one who is entrusted with little can be entrusted with a lot. And I think we can see that with Nothing in a way that we have often hoped to find in Google. After 8 years, I'm gonna be honest, I'm a little bit tired of waiting for Google to figure it out. Maybe it's just me, but we've been saying maybe next year for a long time. Do you feel the same way too? Perhaps it'll never come. I don't know, maybe it will. But until then, we at least have a glimmer of hope in Nothing.